Hello, and welcome to Wolff Weekly number 3. Today we're going to be doing a quick overview of Hira-To maintenance. My name is Caleb Sneed, and I do sales and marketing here at Wolff Industries. And I've got Glenn Burke with me. He is our master sharpener and trainer here at Wolff Industries. Before we jump into things, though, real quick, I do want to give out our sincere condolences to the Sturm family with the Edge Pro. And to Jason and the loss of his father. We just wanted to let you guys know that the Wolff Industries family is thinking about you and praying for you. So a little housekeeping before we get started here. We're doing a similar setup to what we did last week. We have our main cam, we have our top-down cam here, which is probably where we'll spend most of our time highlighting on the Hira-To there. We've boomed the mic again like we did last week, so let us know in the comments if it needs to go up, how the volume is doing. I know last week we were able to crank it up a little bit, and that ended up helping. So let us know again in the comments. Jump down there, say hello, tell us where you're watching from. Drop your questions in there. We'll be taking a break to answer. I've got my phone here, so I'll try to be able to monitor that. We've got Dan over here running the stream and monitoring everything, so he will be able to feed questions and comments to us as well. I do believe we have Bill Pierce and David Wolff as well in the comments, and so they should be able to answer questions. Without too much further ado, we want to jump straight into it. Yeah. So let's get into Hira-To maintenance. So first off, Glenn, what do I want to do to clean the machine? We've got a bunch of dust here. We want to clean it, and then maybe also touch on magnet care, disc care,
absolutely,
that kind of stuff.
Well, I know there's folks that have tried various different ways to clean their Hira-To. We had one gentleman pressure washing it. I don't suggest that you do that. Others have had different cleaners, sprays. It's real simple. Old toothbrush and your shop vac is going to take care of all its needs up atop. Then we'll touch on the magnet and a little bit of care on the arms, and that's about it. It's a very simple little machine to take care of. There is nothing that needs oiled, nothing that needs lubricated. Okay. We did have a gentleman try lubricating the bearings, which are sealed. He was actually able to get grease pumped down into the hole and pretty much filled up the case with grease. And so I applaud his ingenuity, but that cost him a lot. Yeah. So first thing we're going to do is, now when we turn this shop vac on, we're going to have to kill the mic, but basically everything's going to be dry unless you're using a polishing compound other than what we use that's creating a heavy grease load across on the inside. But this is the Hira-To that we use in our manufacturing out on the floor. So it's got a lot of different types of metal on it. All of it's fairly loose, as you can see. But what I'm going to do is, when I turn this on, I'm going to just set the shop vac in a corner and push the grit to it. Make sure it's broken loose. And that's how we're going to clean the top. So
real quick, we're going to cut that out so it's not too loud. We'll do this.
That's it. Clean the dust out. The next real important thing as far as performance on the machine is the magnet. Guys will get in, you can see, I don't know if you can get a good view, you see all the damage that's on the top of this magnet. That just comes from guys getting in a hurry, dropping the edge of the disc onto the magnet, and sometimes you'll get polish, you'll get grit buildup. The first thing that I like to do is I'll turn it on low, give a little spray.
And what's in your bottle there?
Just water.
Just water.
Yeah,
okay.
Plain old water. Clean all the different oils off of it. Now, you could use a light soap on it. It doesn't need anything real caustic, a light soap. But what ends up happening at times is one of these scratches is going to cause a raised area. Any one of these little divots can cause a raised area. So when the plate is on, it'll rock. Now I know you can't really see this, but when you turn it on, you pull in a shear across, the plate will vibrate. And what ends up happening is that there is either something on the bottom of the plate, little polishing compound or grit that's got stuck to the back of the plate, or there's actually a raised area on your magnet. Simple to take care of. This is 120 grit sandpaper. Again, start off slow and just lightly carry that sandpaper across your magnet until it's nice and smooth. And you'll see where it's built up on the sandpaper. Move it to a different area. And it's nice and smooth again. The magnet is replaceable, so that if it's damaged where you can't fix it, we do sell the magnet separately, where you could take this off, clean the turntable, and re-adhere a brand new magnet on there. That's it for the magnet. The next thing is you want to make sure the back of your plates are nice and clean. That way they sit to the magnet flush. You don't have any tipping. Next thing would be your arm, making sure that you've got snap rings on the side of or on each end of the joints. I don't know if you're able to see that.
Yeah, I think you may have bumped the camera when you were doing the vacuum.
Oh.
If you want to pull it forward just a little bit.
Pull it forward. Tell you what, I'll move back.
Slide that back just a little bit. I can
How's that?
around and see. We don't have a whole lot of.
Sorry about that. But you
There
want to
we
make
go.
sure the snap rings are in place so that your arm stays tight. You also, for cleaning purposes, I'll use the scissor lube. The shaft here, you can use the scissor lube to clean the shaft.
Now, why would you use the scissor lube over something else?
Well, certainly you don't want to use an oil with it. Oil will attract the dust, hold it in place. This is a anodized aluminum shaft, so it's designed to be slick in itself.
Okay.
You just need to keep the grit out of it.
Right. Okay.
But if you can see that, Dan, I'll put a little drop of scissor lube at your pivot points. There's actually a bearing that's behind these snap rings. They don't need to be lubricated. I just use the scissor lube to make sure I'm cleaning dust out. The other point, I'm going to loosen this, making sure,
Slide forward a little bit.
there we go,
There.
thank you.
Yeah.
Making sure your cradle, the clamp for holding the shear, is clean. Again, you can use a mild soap with that. If you're going to be cleaning the threads, again, I suggest you use the scissor lube, that you would put it on the outside of the threads, or threads that are outside of the clamp. You can run it in. You can put scissor lube on the inside to help keep the threads clean.
Now, you told me earlier that there was a tip about the cord. There's something specific that we'll run into sometimes.
Guys that are mobile, maybe they're carrying this in a bag or they just carry it into the salon. They have a tendency, and I'm going to unplug this real quick. They have a tendency to wrap their cord around the machine. There, I'll smack the camera again. And it causes a lot of stress back here, where this is folded over and then extended and folded over and extended, and you'll have a breakage right here.
Okay.
And that short will cause the machine to stop working while you're in the middle of a sharpening, or not start. You know, when you're in the salon, just a simple matter of replacing the cord. If this is the way if this is the way you roll, just consider the cord a wear item. You'll need to replace it soon.
We're going to take just a short little break here and see if any questions come through regarding cleaning dust, maybe smoothing out the magnet there. If nothing comes through, we'll jump into our next little part, but I just kind of want to take a break and see if we got stuff coming through. I am seeing if I can check here on the phone to make sure we've got everything covered that we need to cover. Please stop us if we need to go back and do something again. So if we need to show something again from a different angle, fix the camera, that kind of thing, let us know. But we're going to jump into some Whetstone
Set
maintenance.
this aside.
We're going to look at a couple different flatteners, and then we do want to specifically highlight the DMT lapping plate and why we want to use it. So as Glenn gets set up here, I'll keep looking for some questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we are an authorized Shapton stone dealer, so there is, if there's a particular stone that you need other than what we carry in-house, you can order it from us. We carry in-house the 6,000 grit Shapton white ceramic sharpening stone. That goes out with the machine. We also carry a 5,000 grit ceramic whetstone. Obviously, it's going to cut a little faster, help remove damage. Obviously, faster. Looking for an alternate word there, a synonym, but yeah, take it off. Faster works. The old whetstone, if you do not keep it flat, you are eventually going to start having some serious problems working your inside lines.
So speaking of that, so you just answered, but one of the questions we did get was told that the stone should be convex for sharpening convex scissors. So the question was, should it be convex or flat? So I think you just answered that. But
yeah, you want it absolutely flat. Over the years, I have used different flatteners. I used a DMT. It's called a W8. This is a coarse. It has the pockets in it, but it was a diamond plate. I used one of these for years when I was mobile. When I came here, we started using it here just for answering questions from sharpeners, we tried this plate. I didn't find that it worked as well with the ceramics. It works great for natural stones, but not for the ceramics. Okay. Then Jason Sturm turned us on to the Diaflat. This is a DMT Diaflat. It's guaranteed to be perfectly flat up to 0.5 thousandths.
Wow.
And so if you're using multiple stones, you've got a 1,000, you've got an 8, maybe a 10, a 6, 5, whatever you've got multiple stones that you put your shears on. You want all of those to be the exact same flatness. This is what you want to use.
Gotcha.
This Diaflat does a phenomenal job. I actually went through and flattened every single stone that we've used here in the classroom, whether it's experimental or ones that we sell, and took a shear across each one, starting at the core system, moved, and the ride lines mirrored all of them perfectly, mirrored one another from each stone, one to another. So if you are a mobile sharpener and you're using a Whetstone, invest in the Diaflat. Jason sells them, we sell them. This is one of the best maintenance tools that you are going to ever have.
Okay.
Its use, very simple. I like flattening my stones under running water. But if you're out mobile,
So as you're doing this, tell me what you're doing and why here.
When you're using the stone, you'll have your loading on there from putting a shear blade on, and I thought there was more of a contrast. But what I'll have guys do, I think there's a pencil.
Show the
well, there's
contrast, because we can hold up to this camera too. This camera will probably catch a little bit more of the detail than the top.
Bear with me for just a second. I should be able to bump
What's that?
it up.
So housekeeping here real quick. Dan's going to try to bump up some stuff on the camera so we can see some of the contrast here on the stone a little easier. Glenn's also going to find a handy dandy pencil that will help show exactly what it is he's trying to do here on the wheel. So give us just a second as we grab this. Now's a good time to put some questions in here that we may see if we can get to here in just a little bit.
No pencil. It's all right.
No pencil, all right.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think it's just reflection from the light.
Okay. On Shapton's website, they'll talk to you about putting pencil marks, zigzag pencil marks or slash pencil marks across your stone. You flip your stone over, and what I was doing is going from corner to corner with the width of the stone, like this. And then I turned and I went from this corner to this corner with the stone. If you want to go straight, that's fine. You just want to be able to have uniform pressure where you're not rounding your edges this way, or rounding your ends. And the results are great. We've been thoroughly impressed. One of the questions after this is typically, how often?
Right. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, that is going to depend on you, the sharpener. I have guys say they do it every night. So between, all day long, they're using water and a rag. Now, if you're using a paper towel, obviously that's going to leave behind. Can you see that, Dan? Can you see the fibers? No.
If you turn it a little bit and change the face,
Change that
the light.
It's a little.
Just
yeah,
for
it's a little
explanation, these shims that I have under my stone is worn so thin that I actually had to raise it up in the stone holder, and I just have shims underneath it to hold the stone flat. I don't know if you can see the fibers coming off there. Go ahead.
So let's see. So I'm getting here a note that we need to move this because you can't see from the front view, see what you're doing here. We're going to see if the camera can pick up. So what Glenn is trying to show is the paper towel is leaving particles on the stone here. And that's what he was trying to pick up on the camera to see if you can see it. But it may be, the light's may be too bright to pick that up on the white stone.
I don't know if you're able to see that, Dan.
Yeah, it's the white's too bright with the light. So
well, you're going to find that it leaves behind a lot of fiber. You can just spray it off and go on with your honing. I have known guys that'll use lint-free cloths, which will leave just smaller particles of lint for free. But they'll go through the whole day just cleaning their plate. When they get home at night, they'll resurface it. I have known guys, they'll say, well, I just do mine once a week. I actually did mine. I actually used my flattener to clean my plate after every blade. My stones didn't last as long, but I knew they were flat. And the reason I use the flattener to clean the plate is so that I'm using the stone to tell me what's happening underneath. When I have that shear on the stone, I'm using the stone to tell me where I need to add pressure, whether or not I'm getting a tip. So when I'm using the stone, and I believe we're going to be going over ride line, inside line, whatever term you want to use, but I think that's going to be next Friday's topic, isn't it?
Yeah, so right at the end, we're going to touch on some ride lines and maybe some differences real quick between the Waterstone and the honing block kit and some things like that. General overview, but ride lines is such a big subject that we want to dedicate a whole session to it. So actually next week we are going to go through the full, kind of a deep dive on ride lines.
There was a question about the differences between the abrasives. That is going to give Dan some time to throw up a little chart.
Yeah, so this question specifically I saw on Facebook, I believe it was Philip Johnson in one of the UK groups, asked, to kind of differentiate the different microns, the different discs, and then even like typical uses for that. So we definitely want to highlight this. I want to thank you, Philip, for giving us this topic.
With the Hira-To, we send out 5 different abrasives and a polishing plate, and we're going to come to the polishing plate last. The first abrasive is going to be the 80 micron, and if I can look at that graph real easily, what's 80 micron is right about between 225 and 240. Is that right?
Yes.
So I don't have this memorized, and actually if you go online, you can Google grit references, and depending on whether or not you're talking to an automotive place or a machinist or anything place that does fine lapping, they may have various charts, whether it's talking about from Japan or from Germany. Everybody has just a slightly different graph. So what you're seeing on the screen is one that I found the easiest to understand. It gets you pretty close. So that 245 to 225 grit is going to be your 80 micron. The 60 micron, you know, again, what do you got over there, Dan?
285 to 240.
About 240? Let's see.
So Glenn's looking over here for the chart.
All
you guys are looking right
yeah,
here
you're
for the
going to be
chart.
looking on that side.
And we will also link the chart once this video is posted. We'll put a link. I'll drop a PDF in there, and so that you can download this chart and have it on record. Yeah.
So what I thought of I should have done is write it down in a Sharpie on the disc. But we send the Hira-To with 80 micron, 60 micron, 30 micron, 15 micron, and 9 micron, and the polishing compound is a 3 to 5 micron diamond paste on a felt pad. That being said, we'll move into, if you notice, I keep my polishing pad in a baggie. I don't want any dust to get on this, 0, because any of this grit that gets on that's floating around in the air, or maybe inside the lip of my machine. And this is another something that, guys, you want to help me carry this back over this way? You'll get this dust buildup inside the machine. And if you're not careful, when you put your polishing plate on there, turn this thing on high, and
Might need to plug in for some power. Dan, can you drop in this top view here so we can see? Thank you.
I'll move this over.
There we go.
So you've got your polishing plate in there, and throughout the day you've got dust all inside. Turn it up to full speed. This dust will just kind of envelop the top of your plate, top of your machine, and it'll start getting on your polishing plate. Well, all this 80, 60, 30, 15, 9 micron dust is now getting on what's supposed to be your 8,000 grit polishing plate. And now you've just turned it into a cacophony of all the dust particles. And it's no longer going to polish. It's going to leave behind a milky finish. One of the things that I'll do prior to any polishing is I'll turn the machine on and I'll give a light spray of water, and it'll trap the dust. It'll keep it from blowing around. Then I'll put my polishing plate on. Now I'm ready to start polishing my shears. You've got to take care of this plate or it's not going to work right for you. And there is no cleaning it off. It's a felt pad. Some you like using a Subi pad. The Subi pad, again, is going to have the exact same problems because your dust is going to stick to your polishing compound. So take care of your polishing plate. You got to keep it clean. But as far as your grits, take a screenshot of the. Dan's going to.
We'll throw that chart back up here real quick, and we'll take a second to answer some questions. We've had a couple things come through that I think maybe we'll add to the end when we wrap up, specifically fuses, that kind of thing. So we'll touch on those in the end because we want to jump into the next part of this. But I did see your questions come through, and we'll get to those.
The types of uses for the different abrasives. One of the things that I have found is that with working with beauty shears, you're typically not going to have that severe of damage where you have to use the 80 and the 60. The worst type of damage that I've seen with the beauty shears, just normal use, you could start with the 30 and go 30, 15, and 9 and then polish with the beauty shears. Dog grooming shears, I'll use the 80, 60, and 30. I typically don't go any finer than that on a standard bevel. Semi-convex, you're definitely going to want to go all the way through the 9 and into the polishing plate. But it just depends on the severity of the damage that you have to remove. If it's a deep nick, you're going to have to start with the coarser grits, the 80 and 60. If it's just normal use, a blunt shear, like it's the only shear the stylist has, you're going to have to start with your 30. If it's a type of repair where somebody has beveled a convex shear and you have to restore that convex, definitely you're going to have to start with the 80. But yeah, the common uses, beveled shears, I'll use those. Convex shears, I'll use these 3.
All right, cool. We're gonna take a second, see if we got some questions coming through here before we jump into the next topic, specifically about that. Cool. Let's jump into diamond paste. So we're gonna look specifically. So this, I saw one of these questions on the internet. Is can we highlight maybe the differences between the diamond paste that we use and other options that are on the market?
Yeah.
And why we go this route.
This is one of those topics where there's a huge array of opinion. When you are talking about what's best to use for polishing beauty shears, everybody has their 2 cents. I appreciate the work that Jim O'Donnell put into finding. Jim O'Donnell did a lot of research trying to get a paste that didn't create a large mess, but left a nice bright finish. And what we've got is a oil-based diamond compound. This actually is 3 to 7 micron, so they can't say, yeah, it's all 3 micron, which is 8,000 grit. It has a variety, but we use an oil-based compound because we use a felt plate. The felt will absorb the polishing compound, hold it in place, and usually when you are, see, that didn't leave too much oil on my finger, so this plate is needing recharged. I like using the oil base because that's a real quick test for me to say, okay, I need more polishing compound on here. There are other polishing compounds. Some sharpeners like a particular green rouge. It is I believe it is a stainless steel or a silver polish. It works very, very well, very messy, but you're getting the job done. You want the end result. All right, so I've used that. I've also used a spray-on diamond. I believe it was on a Suba pad, but a spray-on 3 micron. And I didn't prefer that because I wasn't always 100% sure how much of the concentration of diamond I was getting onto my plate. It settles in the liquid, but a lot of guys swear by it. So it comes down to an opinion.
And so the reason we do the diamond paste that we have is because it creates a really nice bright finish, and because it's easy to use and a little cleaner.
A little bit cleaner. Yes, it is.
Than spraying. Okay, so I have seen some questions come in about our last topic. So
okay.
We'll take these questions here real quick. And just if you guys see me like looking down at my phone, I'm not like texting my buddies or anything. I am looking at the comments that are coming through and a tip. So on a standard bevel grooming shear, bevel, why not go all the way to the 9 micron?
You want some bite on that shear. You're also dealing typically with 35 degrees, 25 to 35 degrees. If you have a real high polish on that edge, it's going to cause more of a hair slide than hair stoppage that allows it to be cut. Most of your standard bevel dog grooming shears, one blade is going to be corrugated. If you remove that corrugation and add a high polish to it, that shear simply isn't going to perform like it did when they bought it.
Cool. We have, Dan, do we have anything else coming through that you see that we need to address at the time? Let's see here. we have a question on what is the lapping plate name and part number?
The lapping plate, well, that's a good question. Prep, see, that'd be a nice note for the next time. We mentioned something, let's have a part number for it.
Yeah, so I believe the part number is, and we'll double check it for sure, is diaflat.
Okay.
So email us and tell us you want the diaflat. Search DIAFLAT on our website, diaflat, and it comes up.
Excellent. You'll love it.
Let's see. I'm going to look at some questions here, and we'll keep moving on. I don't want to hold up too much time here. Do you see anything, Dan, we need to address?
Just make sure you get to the question about the fuse.
Get to the question about the fuse. We can, let's do the fuse real quick before we go into the last.
There's a sticker on the back of your Hira-To. It says, is that good, Dan? Can't quite see it. 5 amp SB, that's a slow blow. The slow blow allows your motor, because we use a dynamic brake with the control board, you can have this, plug it in again, you can have it at full speed. I want to make sure this is on. You can have it on full speed. I just reverse direction. And what that does is it spikes your amperage. I just hit the light. I'm going to have to get used to that. Boom. It spikes your amp inside the control board. And that slow blow absorbs that extra amperage without blowing immediately. So if you're going to replace it, don't go any higher than 5 amps, and you're definitely going to want what's called a slow blow fuse.
All right, I'm just going to take a real quick look here, add some questions. I think we're good. If we have gone and answered a question that didn't quite answer it for you, let us know. Either we can address it here on the stream, or Bill Pierce or David Wolff can answer it in the comments, and we can also take it offline as well and answer questions over email or anything like that. Looks like Dan's got something for me.
We do have one quick one.
Yep.
This should be a relatively quick answer from Tim. He's asking about corrugations. Do you see that one?
Yeah, so we can address this real quick. We can also look at this in a future stream as well when we do like corrugated scissors. But corrugations get messed up. Is it best to remove and redo them if your corrugations get messed up? Okay.
Yes. You always want to start fresh because damage, if I could use my hands as a reference, damage not only occurs on what we see as the outside edge that we would sharpen, okay? We'll see that type of damage, but it also occurs or is transferred to the inside of the shear. So you've got to sharpen through all of that damage, which will remove from the outside edge and the inside edge of the shear.
All right, let's see. Okay, thank you for the questions. We're going to jump into the last little bit here. This is a huge topic. We're going to talk a little bit on the ride lines, but this is more or less part one. We're going to do part two next week, and that's going to be, we're going to dedicate the whole stream to ride lines, and we'll get into some technical stuff next week. But we do want to sort of do an introduction to that, and we kind of want to look at some definitions, some pros and cons maybe between Whetstones, honing block kit, and then next week we'll show it all in action.
Okay. The Akami Gold comes with the honing block kit. This is a 4,000 grit lapping paper. It's a cloth back, wet dry lapping paper. And that's your deburr. Your finish paper is an 8,000 grit cloth back, wet dry. And we put them, when I first started sharpening, I thought, who was the genius that came up with this particular idea? It's a sanding block, but we're not using the flat side, we're using the handle. And what's interesting is that this arc is so helpful when you're working with convex shears that have the set in it. And we just turn it a little bit. We'll get into that a little more detail. But this is brilliant. It is very user-friendly. It is simple to learn, and it's very forgiving. This will actually put a very good inside line on a shear, no matter what condition it's in. If you sharpen the damage out, this will put an inside line on it. Again, very simple to learn. Simple to use, easy to learn. The learning curve on this is very short. I really have enjoyed using the honing blocks.
Now this, I may be jumping ahead of you, but this made me think of the question that was asked earlier, particularly about needing a flat stone for a convex shear.
Okay.
Because we were flattening the stone.
Yeah.
This does have an arc to it.
It does, and we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna get into this in pretty good detail because you've got to define some terms. I did a quick search on different sharpeners, chats and forums that I'm a part of, and what I call a ride line, somebody might call an inside line. What somebody calls an inside line might call it an inside edge. And so we're going to have a chart out. We're going to have a picture. We're going to just define some terms. It doesn't mean that all my terms are correct. It's just the terms I use to understand what's going on. So that if somebody comes in and says, hey, how do I get the inside of the shear right? Well, I am going to have to assume they're talking about the inside line or the ride area. It's also called the ride line. We have to determine what definition of terms so that we can properly address certain questions. That being said, if an individual is talking about a convex shear and how to work the inside line on a convex shear, I have to make sure that they're not worried about the hollow grind, because your inside line, it's interesting because I had a shear, earlier this week. The hollow grind was waved. Wow. It wasn't smooth down the center of the shear, and that wave actually affected the ride line so that the ride line had waves in it, and it's insharpenable. And so yes, your hollow grind affects your ride line, but when you're working an inside line, you're not necessarily concerned about the hollow grind when you're working the inside line, except when you're talking about the tips. So there's all these quid pro quos.
Right, and we'll get into, I understand, we'll get into more of the nitty gritty next week.
But these are the honing blocks that come with the Akami Gold. The Hira-To comes with a 6,000 grit Shafton stone, and again, this is what's going to put a more factory-like inside line on the shear. It's going to be defined. It's going to be what that shear came with. That being said, the learning curve on a Whetstone is much higher than on the honing blocks. You've got to have some training on these, because it's very easy to mess up a pair of shears on a Whetstone as opposed to a honing block. Very, guess you could say, unforgiving. you've got to get some training on using a whetstone. Unless you've got lots of time to practice and somebody to bounce off your bad shears and say, okay, this is where you put too much pressure, you should have done this, should have done that. But you are going to get a more factory-like inside line on a whetstone than you will on the Atomic Gold honing blocks. Function, they're both going to function the same way.
Okay. Rod line work. If y'all see me looking off to the side of the camera, that's where we have our notes to make sure that we cover everything that we want to. I think that was probably just enough to make people ask a lot of questions about rod lines that we'll get to next week. So hopefully that was enough to whet your appetite to want to join us next Friday. And we wanted to, we had a lot of plans to show you a lot of stuff today, and we just realized that we need to dedicate, time specifically for that. And real excited about doing that.
I have to.
Yeah, so I want to thank you guys for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Let's look at any other last little questions here that we want to get to. We'll be using the honing blocks next week.
Yes.
Yes, so we're going to do honing blocks and the whetstone next week. Looking through here to make sure that we get everything. When we do want to address that, Glenn talked about it earlier, check out the diaplat. And
yes,
we do have the 3 Shapton stones available, but we are an official Shapton distributor, so if there is something specific that you want, we can put in a custom order for you and get that in. Thank you for joining us. Next week, same time, same place for Ride Lines.
Amen.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you, guys.